Okay. I'll burn some incense now.
That smells wonderful. Thank you. Wait, did you fart?
That wasn't me.
Wait. Oh, hey.
Good.
I get my music from sounds.
Oops.
Sounds. It's royalty. If I had it on a separate track,
So you can if you have it from us.
All right. Where am I? Hook sounds. I gotta pause it. Stop it. Stop. Okay. Wait, now I gotta turn you back up. So because it's all on the same. Hey, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whatever the case may be. Welcome to Cross Examinations Live. Today's show is, where did I put it? Crisis at the Border.
Dun 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 dun.
Dun, dun. Oh, the drama. The drama. How do I refresh this page? What other? There's a crisis at the border. I don't know what to do with that.
Brian does that voice real good.
Brian does a lot of great voices. He's funny. Today with me, special guest, Elliot Fornandez. Not Fornandez, but that's what I like to call him.
Let's go. I'll take it either way.
All right. Say hello, Elliot.
What's up, everybody? Welcome all to Blacklist Universe.
Blacklist Universe. That's us. Ooh, only 16 people watching now. Are you getting your notifications? Anyone getting your notifications? I did put Crisis at the Border and Hispanic. I spelled evangelical with 2 capital I's. Dude, trying to get around this algorithm. Trying to do it. Trying to get around. What's up, Aaron Alfecci? Back in first place. I swear, Aaron sits there at his computer waiting for me to come on. He's almost always first in the chat. Bam! He's there. Patiently waiting. Aaron is a good fan. A good fan of the show.
This is interesting because you don't even have it timed, right?
Nope. It's just random times of the day.
He's just waiting.
Whoa, look at that cloud. It looks like an eagle. Looks like the eagle on a $1 bill or something. Wings spread out with its legs holding stuff. You can't see it, but look on this.
I see it. Or a phoenix.
Oh, it's kind of changing now. But it did a second ago.
Yeah. Is that a live thing?
No, it's just it's a compilation of YouTube videos I use for background called something.
P Money said he got notified.
It's Nature TV. Welcome
in the world.
Welcome to Nature TV. Thank you for coming in. We want to say hello to a few people in here. Oh, by the way, so that's the main topic. Will be Crisis at the Border. Prior to that, we have no comments from yesterday's show, so we are going to do a quick sort of a Bible study, but more or less a verse study on not being unequally yoked. So we will get to that after we say hello to all of our friendly friends in the friendship zone. Aaron Alfecci, Cubsadon, Hugh, Liberty Bell, Hyperion's Atomic Vision, Mike McCollum, Ted Lemon, hello, one and all, Raythulu, Yoda, Yoda, yo. What up, yo? Hi. Yoda, yo.
Yes.
Is that everyone? Dark Admiral March Hare, Comic Book Bob, WK, and anyone else coming in. Aaron says, you make it sound like this show doesn't deserve my excitement, Mike. Well, I'm humbled that you are so faithful to the show, Aaron.
It's beautiful.
Oh, Sailor Moon loves tuxedo mask. Has a message for my daughter. $4.99. Did some illegals steal my 2 drawings? My mailman will shove a turkey in my mailbox if given the chance. So please remember to write "leave at front door." I actually have a note. Where did my note go? Oh. Rogue Jubilee note. Leave at front door. Right here. I got you, Sailor Moon. And I harass Eden on an almost daily basis to get the Jubilee commission done. Artists. You know what they're like. So clearly, don't commission anything for my daughter unless you're patient. Terrible.
We're working on it.
How is your day so far, young Elliot?
I'm all right. I've been working on some stuff and trying to get my head on right. Lots of pressure. My worried about Doom Kicker. Sale yesterday, so I'm like, okay, I gotta figure this out. What am I doing wrong? Gotta work on it.
How's it going?
I mean, we're still good. We are at 41,570 still. Still really good. But I want to keep that ball rolling. So.
Yeah, my Lone Star Ball has sort of come to a near dead stop because I don't have any money to put into advertising. I think I've milked everybody in my community immediately, and yeah, so I don't know. I just want to draw at this point, so I don't really want to be in campaign mode.
Right. True.
Did you see me finish this on the show? Oh, you might have to take a minute for you to see it.
Give me a couple seconds here.
Maybe I forgot to post it. I was going to post this on Twitter.
Oh, that looks so good. The comment that I heard yesterday about what's his name that passed away. It does look like his work.
Oh, Bernie Wrightson?
Bernie Wrightson, yeah.
Yeah, that was a great compliment. I love Bernie Wrightson.
Wow, that was great, man. Yeah, that's the only challenge is that takes so long.
Oh, the rendering? That kind of rendering?
Yeah. But you did it masterfully. It looks really good.
I kind of messed up in this area here.
I'll have to wait for your fingers to get there. In that area? You think so?
Yeah, because I didn't plan. I planned on actually just spotting blacks.
Okay.
But I start getting into things and I just...
You adjust along the way. Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. It looks good. It looks really good. Really good.
Thank you. All right. So, since there's no comments, hello, DJ. What's up? Liberty Bell says that does look good. Thank you very much. That is from Monster Hunt, page 2 of Monster Hunt. I will get around to drawing page 1, possibly today. Oh, you know what? I could do a laying out a page, how to draw comics like a pro video with page 1 today.
You could do that for sure.
I could do that. I could indeed do that. I might just do that. What are we drawing for Drawn and Quartered tomorrow? We're trying to think of something patriotic since it is July 3rd.
You know, I might have a couple ideas. I was thinking about this actually. Well, tonight, by the way, is going to be we're moving our paranormals to tonight. So I think I'm finding an article, a story on haunted battleships.
I thought you were going to say haunted chupacabras.
Well, no, it's 4th of July. This is the 4th of July episode.
Oh, okay.
So I'm just saying, in the spirit of...
Right. That would be more like a Cinco de Mayo thing.
Right. I just pulled up the passage here for that.
Oh yeah, I have it on another screen. Hold on.
Yeah,
all right, let me pop it up. It's going to cover up Elliot's beautiful balding head.
Yes, please. In the meantime, I'll be thinking about other patriotic superheroes.
Okay, you do that. All right, bang. All right, transition. So, 2 Corinthians 6:14 says, "Be ye not unequally yoked together with unbelievers. For what fellowship hath righteousness with unrighteousness? And what communion hath light with darkness?" Elliot,
Mm.
Give me your thoughts.
Well, I know from history, from well, I should say from the way I was taught. Normally, this passage has been connected to marriage,
Mm-hmm.
and I would say that that's not a bad thing at all. Even though, I mean, I obviously I'm giving away the punchline that I don't think it's directly related to marriage anymore.
I don't think it's exclusively related to marriage.
Right, right. I could say that. I could agree with that. But I think it definitely fits marriage, which is um, in this case, in this particular case, I think it's more generally associated now for me with business and
Yeah,
business partnerships.
that is too. But let's tackle the marriage thing first.
Yeah, because that's those are both important relationships, and
Yeah,
I
well,
think some
that's that's
people.
that's why the concept is unequal yoking. Like you can.
Right.
So okay, so for those who don't know, a yoke is that piece of wood or sometimes piece of metal nowadays that a farmer will use to take two ox, right? Two oxen, oxens,
Hmm.
two ox,
Awesome. Yeah.
and bind the two together so that they move as one creature, right? And the problem is if you have a grown ox and a grown male ox and say a young female ox, the grown male ox will be larger and stronger and have a wider gait than the small ox. So if you're trying to plow a straight field and your oxen are not equally yoked, you're going to be plowing great big circles.
Hmm.
And that is not how you plow a field. So the
Hmm.
visualization of unequal yoking is that both of the ox have to be the identical in strength, size, etc., etc., etc. So in in the sense of marriage, or in the sense of business or whatever, um, if you don't have the same, I kind of take this. What I like to do is like to take these moral lessons from the Bible and give them a secular perspective because I
Hmm.
feel like it helps explain things. So, like my father and his wife, second wife, at one point, the center of both of their lives was work, right? They
Right.
they met at work. They talked about work. They both loved work. They were both computer engineers, and they were just full on nerdy about computer engineering. And their marriage was, I mean, that's why they got together, and that's why they were blah 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 blah. Everything was working fine.
Right.
And I liken it to the spokes on a bicycle, right? I know I
Hmm.
should probably use the yoke thing, but the if the center of both of your lives is the same thing, then your wheels turn at the same rate, and you have a nice smooth ride, right? Well, one
Hmm.
day my dad's wife uh, lost her job, and she couldn't find other work, so she started getting really invested in this a cappella group that she was into.
Hmm.
My dad was supportive as much as whatever, as much as you can be, but the center of her life went from here to like over here, and my
Hmm.
dad's center was still work, right? Which made their bicycle kind of go like this, and
Right.
eventually, I mean, one thing led to another, and they ended up divorced. Um, so that's sort of when I make the point that your God is the center of your life, whatever it is. It's the most important thing in your life. That positionally is God, lowercase g, God, right?
Right.
If your God is a movable object
Hmm.
like work or video games or pornography or alcohol, whatever it is you put first in your life, if it's movable and you yoke yourself to somebody with an immovable or even with another movable, at some point that center falls apart, relationships can fall apart, etc., etc., etc. If your God is God, If your God is Yahweh, Jesus, whatever. If you want to, if you're a Muslim, that's why. That's why. If you're a Muslim, marry a Muslim. If you're a Jew, marry a Jew. If you're a Catholic, marry a Catholic. You know, it's not that I'm saying that the God of the Catholics and the God of the evangelicals isn't the same God. It is, but you know what I mean. You're following slightly different. That's too esoteric. If your God is God, and then your partner's God is God, then you have the same center. You're equally yoked. You can drive together in a straight line because you have this objective source to fall back on. If you have disagreements about anything, you say, what does the Bible say?
Right.
Right.
Right. Well, no, those are excellent points. I mean, I think where I mean, there's some weird Christianese that I learned as I was coming up about like dating and engaging in relationships with other people. But really, it's more about it's finding that kind of camaraderie. I mean, we talk about that all the time about how often you'll hear people say things. Let's say in the superhero movies, it's better when someone that makes it is a fan of the product. They make a better film.
Yeah.
You have a better synergy, as a better co-labor. You know, when we're working together more tightly, when we have the same vision, when we have the same goals, we're not pulling apart from each other. It's interesting because you said you commented earlier about the oxen, and that's fascinating because it's actually kind of ties into another passage. I think this is the one in I think in Matthew 11, where Jesus says, "Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." That's it. It's interesting because he's speaking in I think in a more supernatural way. That he's got this ability to pull the load. You actually don't pull anything. It's Jesus that does all the work. In that relationship, God is willing to engage in an unequal yoke relationship because you're not actually doing anything. He's doing the work. But when you're depending on the two oxen to operate together, when you're the farmer or you're the owner of the field and you want those two things to operate together, if they're not compatible, and that's really what we're talking about is compatibility. So to your point, it's better for you if you're a Muslim to marry a Muslim, if you're a Christian to marry a Christian, not because it's not possible to love someone else, but that love comes with such a cost. To your point, the relationship will necessarily struggle.
Yeah.
It's very rare to find a relationship where we all kind of collapse into a nice, happy space and we can live in harmony. But it's not impossible. God's done it on multiple occasions for many people. But so going back to that, I'm also curious about the overarching context of that passage in 2 Corinthians, right? Because it's not just about that one spot. Because as I just related that to Jesus being the one, is interesting. When you read further in verse 14, he says after that, he says, well, what accord has Christ with Belial? What portion does a believer share with an unbeliever? What agreement has the temple of God with idols? For we are the temple of the living God, as God said. And this is where it comes into it. I wonder if this has something to do with the desperation sometimes we have in trying to achieve something, whether it's a love relationship. We're desperate for that connectivity with someone else because we have a gap, a hole in our heart. If it's a business relationship or even a friendship, we think that person's going to help me achieve a goal. Here he's saying, I will make my dwelling among them and walk among them, and I will be their God, and they shall be my people. Therefore, go out from their midst and be separate from them, says the Lord, and touch no unclean thing. Then I will welcome you, and I will be a father to you, and you shall be sons and daughters to me, says the Lord Almighty. Right? So it's like he's really saying, trust me. what we're doing in those other relationships is we're hoping that they will fill that hole for me, that they will satisfy that emptiness. Right? Am I wrong?
Mm-hmm.
You think?
No, I think you're right. I think you're right.
Because even if you look at the passage before it, like at the beginning of 6, he's saying things like,
Let's read
but
the whole thing.
well, you could. Sorry, should I go too far?
No, no, no. Let's just read the whole thing. We then, as workers together with him, meaning Christ, beseech you also that ye receive not the grace of God in vain. For he saith, I have heard thee in a time accepted, and in the day of the salvation I have succored thee. Behold, now is the accepted time. Behold, now is the day of salvation, giving no offense in anything, that the ministry be not blamed. Time out there for a second. The truth is offense enough without us being jerks about it.
Mm.
But in all things, approving ourselves as the ministers of God, in much patience, in afflictions, in necessities, in distresses, in stripes, in imprisonments, in tumults, in labors, in watchings, in fastings, by pureness, by knowledge, by long suffering, that's a hard one, by kindness, by the
Yeah.
Holy Ghost, by love unfeigned, by the word of truth, by the power of God, by the armor of righteousness on the right hand and on the left, by honor and dishonor, by evil report and good report, as deceivers and yet true, as unknown and yet well known, as dying. This is covering everything. As
Yeah.
dying,
Yeah.
and behold, we live, as chastened and not killed, as sorrowful, yet always rejoicing, as poor, yet making many rich, as having nothing, and yet possessing all things. O ye Corinthians, our mouth is open unto you, our heart is enlarged. Ye are not straitened in us, but ye are straitened but in your own bowels. Now for a recompense in the same I speak as unto my children, be ye also enlarged, be ye not unequally yoked.
Mhm. It's interesting. You go back
Oh
to verse
man.
3. He's
Unbelievable.
saying, "We put no obstacle in anyone's way." This is I'm reading the ESV version, so that no fault may be found with our ministry.
Sorry, what was
So
it?
I'm saying that I'm making a connection here to the idea that I think Paul is saying here also, or I think he's saying it, that we have a bigger part to play than just some of these type of relationships. And I think when he's going to all those different contrasts, you're seeing we don't want to have any fault found in our ministry, but as servants of God, we commend ourselves in every way by great endurance and afflictions, hardships, through that whole list. And he's saying that this is our ministry, this is our purpose, this is our point for being here. When you get into that situation, and then he says there in verse 12, he says, "You're not restricted by us, but you are restricted in your own affections," or you said the bowels, I think is what you said.
Yeah.
But it's saying like we have this it might be that I fall into this trap. I'm restricted because I'm involved in this other thing, because I was putting hope in that other person to fulfill this part, and now I'm stuck. I can't move any because now I'm not connected with the right. I'm not compatible with the people I'm running with. Uh, uh, Edwin shared something with me the other day. We were discussing different things and the importance of not forsaking the gathering of the brethren,
Right.
and why that's so important, because we find camaraderie and support with each other. Now in this situation, I can't be supported because I'm dragging you along and we're crooked, or you're dragging me along and I'm crooked.
Right.
But that's not to say that sometimes we aren't. Sometimes my wife is stronger than me and she helps me, and sometimes I'm stronger than her and I help her.
Yeah. Help
But
me.
that's a normal dynamic, I
Yeah,
think.
that is. And now, relating this to sort of a business world ethic, whatever. It's the same thing. It's to me the unequal yoking. It's not that you don't work with unbelievers. right? That's not the intention.
Right. Right.
Um, it's that you don't go in if you're going in the same direction and you both have the same vote, right? Say you're 50, you don't go 50-50 with somebody if their intentions are not on the same line as yours. Because
Right.
at any day, uh, they can change their mind and say like, oh well, I want to change this and this and this, and you can't be like, hey, let's you don't necessarily abide the same rule book,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you're not both going to an objective source of truth, unless you like, and even dude, even contractually, people break contracts all the freaking time.
Right.
But
Right.
if your contract is with the higher power and you agree that that higher power has arbitration over your
Right.
disagreements, right? Then
Right.
what? People end up taking each other, partners end up taking each other to court, suing each other, destroying everything they built together, um, because they don't have that same foundation. And then that, I think, to your point about it being about business, yeah, I mean, I can hire a Satanist to draw my book. If I'm gonna pay him a
Sure.
freaking
Right.
if I'm
Right.
gonna
Right.
pay
Right.
him, a page rate and give him a royalty, but ultimately I am in control of the direction of the book. Or conversely, I can I can accept work as a freelancer from whoever who might completely disagree with everything I believe in. I'm working for, and even in that case, the Bible says, and I know it uses the term slavery, but the Bible says slaves be be do good work for your masters. Essentially, I'm
Right.
paraphrasing really poorly, but
Right.
everything you do it as unto Christ, as if Christ is your boss, not
Right.
your heathen master who whatever. I don't want to go into a little bad whatever,
Yeah.
but you know what I
Yeah.
mean. You know what I
Yeah.
mean. I think that's the yoking thing. You
No,
don't
I.
fifty
Yeah.
fifty with somebody,
No,
right?
I agree. I agree with that. It's in another way of saying that you can say that it's when it's when it's when we put all of our trust in the Lord that when we engage in circumstances where we could have a problem, to your point, because I'm going back to the passage again, and then in the rest of like say 16, 17, 18, where he's reasserting that I'm your God.
Mm.
When you put your trust in Him, you see everyone else around you in a different light. If it adjusts your paradigm,
All right.
you're not just observing them from your own broken lens. You're seeing it through the lens of Christ and saying this person deserves this much love. It also means that I'm not going to give all my stuff to them because I can't. They're not it's not that they're not worthy of respect and dignity, but they're not God.
Right.
They can't do for me in this relationship what God. That's like trusting my son who's to drive my car, who's never driven the car, to save my life. We're probably going to die on the way out. If I give him the keys, I got to find a way to do it because hopefully I'll teach him soon. But the point I'm making though is that in that situation, God's saying I'm doing that. So now you're free to engage another person who may not be in the same way, but in a different relationship. You're not expecting them to be a partner. And I think partnerships are much more of a deeper relationship than a boss to hired help, or employer to employee relationship.
Right.
I am depending on the employee to execute a certain task, but we're not necessarily in the same level, or where we're both benefiting at the same level, and then the stakes are that high for each of us.
Right. And
So
and as believers, as employees, we should be the paragon of employee of you know if
right,
all we are doing is as unto the Lord, we're not sitting there watching the clock. We're not taking 10-minute breaks when we should be taking 5-minute breaks. We're doing our best as unto God,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right?
Yeah, and that way we get the opportunity to go back to the beginning of chapter 6, and we preserve the our purpose. That in the end, it's really about demonstrating Christ to others.
Right.
And I think sometimes that's where, I saw someone in the chat say that, sometimes our relationships are not quite 50-50. I've always learned from people that taught me in my marriage to be 100-100. And even though you can't be 100, we're always striving for 100, but you can only be both striving for 100 when you have the same compatible outlook.
Yeah.
But once when you don't have that compatible outlook, I may be the only one. Now, it does say then, you look at other passages where the woman that was married to the non-believer, he says, stay in the marriage, and you have to pray for your husband, as long as you can, as long as he wants you, stay.
Yeah.
But that there is a stress on that relationship regardless. I mean, if you have children together, you can't really just dump that guy or gal so easily, as long as they want to be with you. But for crying out loud, that's why, again, even in that situation, you pray for that person. It's putting Jesus in between us, not as an obstacle, but as my lens, as he becomes my shield and my fortress and my strong mountain, and I can depend and rest in him, which is what he's saying here. That's what he said. Take up my yoke, and I'm easy with you, but I'll do the
My
heavy
burden is
lifting.
light. Yeah. Let's see what the chat's saying real quick before we move on to crisis at the border.
Yeah. in light of all this.
Alpha says, Alpha Aziru says, I am a Christian, but I married an atheist. I always wrestled with that, but she had an undeniable experience and accepted Christ last year. Congratulations.
That's awesome.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, the wrestling part was probably fun. DJ Peterson says, the aspect of your life that you should bind yourself should be so tightly coupled to your character that to remove it would be a complete change of who you are. The aspect of your life that you should bind yourself. Little unclear, DJ. You get what he's saying?
I
think
read
I
this
get
one.
what he's saying.
There's this one here I'm reading here from Withheld Rather Not Say. It says, I'm a pretty terrible Christian. I curse. I look down on Christians for believing. Sometimes I get embarrassed about my faith. I think you just looked into my own bathroom and saw my mirror. Welcome to the club. We strive. We try to do better.
Ain't no such thing as a perfect Christian.
Mm-mm. Trust me, I'm the worst sometimes. I try to mitigate it,
Yeah. Let's see. Anything else? Larry says, Matthew 6:33, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. Truth.
Yeah. I love how passages all over Scripture really kind of culminate in that one idea. I've gone through some stuff in my own life, and one of the things that has really, really helped me is the passage where Jesus is asking the disciples, who do they say I am? Some say you're a teacher, some say you're a prophet. But then the question falls back on us, who do you say I am?
All right.
How powerful is that, and having the opportunity to reframe your thinking. You go back to the idea of, that's really what God is asking. Who do you think I am?
Right.
If I am who you say I am, if you really believe that, how will that determine your next steps? It's very, what's the word we use a lot? It's very it's encouraging in one way, but it's also very convicting, because I don't always look at God that way. But he doesn't look bad on me that way, though. He's still, he's still kind.
WK says, the biggest hurdle as a Baptist married to a Catholic has been getting my wife to stop going through the motions and instead have a personal relationship with Christ. She's still working on it. Yeah, and that is kind of what I mean, I didn't want to get too deep in the weeds about the difference between Protestants and Catholics, but that's, yeah, it's, yeah, one of my son's best friends is Catholic, and they get, they used to get into this all the time. So at any rate, let's move on. I know we could probably talk about this topic for another 2 hours, but we don't have that much time, so we're gonna move on to the topic du jour. What is the topic du jour? It's the topic of the day. That sounds delicious. All right, that's from Dumb and Dumber. That's fine, you don't have to laugh. Hispanic evangelical group offers to house migrant... Whoops, I lost it. Migrant children in churches. Crisis at the border.
It's very deep. Powerful.
The head of the largest Hispanic evangelical Christian network in the United States announced it will offer to work with the Trump administration to provide resources and shelter to migrant children crossing the U.S.-Mexico border. Speaking during a call with reporters Monday, the Reverend Samuel Rodriguez, president of National Hispanic Christian Leadership Conference, that's a mouthful, said his organization plans to launch a campaign to offer aid to immigrant children held in detention centers at the border. The effort, which organizers are calling the For His Children campaign, will involve sending shipments and cargo and truckloads of resources to the border, including shoes, clothing, and hygiene products, Rodriguez said. We have boots on the ground literally now working with our current administration in addressing some of the needs of these children coming over, he said. When a religion news service reporter asked if the campaign would involve churches providing shelter or foster homes for migrant children crossing the U.S.-Mexico border, Rodriguez said yes. That's part of what we have in the rollout of the campaign, he said. It's part of it. It was not immediately clear how many or which children the group might be able to take in. No details were available about what kind of government approval the process would require. It was also not clear whether the children would be housed just in churches or in homes also. The Kairos, I think... Oh my gosh, it's a long article. I think we got the point.
Yeah. Well, the question I have here
What is your question?
is I wonder how many children are estimated at the border now, and are there enough homes?
Yeah. I don't know, and this has nothing to do with that, but they DNA tested them, and they found like a third of them are lying about being related. So they're using children to smuggle people and give them excuses for coming across, because it's easier to stay here if you come across with children. So apparently people are either selling or renting their children out to act as essentially buffers against getting sent back home when they get caught. It's terrible. So
that's trouble right there.
Lots of... It's a crisis. Drama.
I mean, I'm generally supportive of our nation's position as far as that, because that obviously that's encouraging trafficking, and obviously that's crazy, but that's how desperate those people really are.
Yeah.
And the problem is, obviously, I mean, I'm just overstating the what's already obvious, is that those children, I mean, my children are adopted, we fostered one first. It's not easy. That's why I asked that question, because that's a lot of now those kids don't have their parents with them at all.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, man, how do you give up your kids for that?
Dude. I remember 20 years ago hearing stories about parents would hobble their kids so they made better beggars at the border.
Oh, that's nuts.
Yeah.
That is nuts. Oh no, I'm just reading some of the comments in the chat about oh some weird stuff.
I did want I did want to bring up. I know we talked about it before. There's someone out there trying to make just such a big stink about what a horrible situation we're putting them in. And so someone posted a video on Twitter of the showers, the horrible showers at the detention center, which
yeah.
looks like the shower at any, YMCA, right? And it's supposed to be like, look how bad they have it. And I did a simple Google search for showers in El Salvador, and I found a picture of a woman bathing her kid with a plastic bucket. And then Elliot, what was your experience?
When I was in I did a mission trip once to Nicaragua, and we the only technologically advanced plumbing was the mission house, and they had we had PVC pipes. That's because they came with some ingenuity from America. They had PVC pipes that ran to visqueen showers, and we had like 6 or 7 showers in a row. It was always cold. And then when we would go to some of these places where there were some issues, they were all bathing out of pails.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have much. They were giant barrels, steel barrels, I guess, metal barrels, full of water, full of mosquitoes, and their hair was all full of lice. They lived in shacks made of like um, uh, uh, garbage. Like they had like cartons, orange cartons, broke down and turned into their huts. They had huts. This is third world.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
coming here and having a shower
A
and a
hot
toilet.
shower, a hot private shower,
Yeah,
and they're like, that's what it is. That's the hoity-toity, right? Oh, I
yeah.
can't believe they're making these people bathe with this hot private shower. It's disgusting. It's not even lined in marble.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I used to when I was younger, and I'd drive down to Mexico. Man, we would drive through Tijuana to get to Rosarito. Dude, there's a freaking cardboard town. Just any
Uh,
kind of piece of scrap, flat cardboard or plywood or
yeah,
anything they could find to put together, they would just nail together and just to get the sun off of their heads, and that was life. So these ivory tower liberals complaining that we're giving people showers and a clean concrete floor to sleep on. It's better than the mud they were sleeping on. You know, the mud and the dirt. They don't have. Man, my church is going. My church goes regularly down to Mexico for missions trips to build orphanages and to build, shelter and whatnot. And my son and daughter are probably going down there again in October. People don't understand. America is so mother flippin' spoiled, and I mean, I don't feel, you know, I am of two minds. Okay, actually, I'm not of two minds. You can either have a welfare state or you can have unimpeded immigration.
right,
You
right,
can't have both. That's the bottom line, because
right.
you can't just have people come here and then just give them everything, right? If people want to come here and there's no welfare state and they come in and and we need workers to fill jobs and all that stuff without a welfare state, to me that's ideal. That's America. That's how America was started. That's how America ran for the better part of 100 and something years. Um, but once the welfare state started, it's like you can't. It doesn't work like that, or it
Hmm.
shouldn't work like that. And then
Yeah,
you have to have all this crap. And I'll also, that's probably tangent. I was gonna say we should end the drug war, but I don't want to get
right.
into my libertarian leanings right now.
Yeah, yeah, right. Me same here. No, I'll add another story. When I did another trip to Mexico one time, and we visited a community that was actually built. Their whole community was built in at the dump, at the city dump.
Jeez.
and they all lived there. I mean, we must have ministered to 30, 40 kids that were in that little group, and that was just one section of the dump. And I'm not saying, listen, I'm not saying that the problem that I think what you're identifying is that sometimes we are creating this illusion that, as they say, we're still the richest country in the world,
Yeah.
regardless. Even the homeless have more access to more stuff than some people do down there. At least there's people who have money to give to homeless people. There's hardly anybody. They're literally living off of garbage. I mean, dogs walking around looking like they're. I mean, the only reason why they're not eating them is because there's no meat on them. I
Yeah.
saw that. I seen that firsthand.
Homeless living off of garbage here, and your average person in a third world country living off of garbage there is not the same garbage. I mean,
Right.
you can go get a clean, nicely wrapped thing that's gonna expire in 3 days out of the dump, not the dump, but the trash bin at Safeway, right?
Yeah.
You can get almost expired cans of food, like good, edible food. I mean, I've watched. There's TV shows about dumpster divers. My friend was a dumpster
Yeah.
diver. There is, it's not the same thing as the rotten crap in the dump in, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We are so spoiled. Even our poor are spoiled.
Well, and that's not to say that there
Quote
isn't.
unquote poor. Sorry.
That's not to say there's an improvement to be had. And it's not to. I'm not saying exchange one thing for another thing necessarily. We're just making the point that it's not simply that because they have a hot shower, and a place to rest. Some people are arguing that they don't have beds. Well, I mean, again, it goes back to how I don't think we're prepared. I don't think anyone is prepared for how many people have come across the border. There just weren't that many supplies in the first place. I can't imagine that. I mean, look how hard it is just to get people to donate food for during a hurricane.
No, this is never. This is unprecedented. These
Yeah,
constant waves of caravans. It's unprecedented, and it's designed to attack our infrastructure. You know, um, it's not like they're all just suddenly going, hey, you know what? We should all just get together, walk for thousands of miles, because you know what it requires when you're walking for thousands of miles with tens of thousands of people. It requires food, it requires water, it requires logistics.
mm,
None of this stuff is happening organically. This
right.
is planned. This is and then there's footage of, like, they're all like on buses and stuff, and then they'll all get out, or maybe not all of them, but I've seen some of this footage. They get out for the walking photo ops, right?
Yeah.
Like, they're coming up, but they're using these as photo ops. It's all targeted to attack. You notice this didn't happen during the Obama administration,
Mm-hmm.
right? This is all planned, targeted, George Soros level freaking garbage, man.
Right. Right. It's funny they have a hard time believing in a mass exodus from Egypt, but no problem believing that this happened organically and naturally.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's funny.
yeah. The tons and tons, literal tons of food and water it would take for people to walk from El Salvador to Tijuana. It's
Yeah. Weren't there buses involved too at some
yeah,
point?
yeah. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's more about. So what we're talking about here is more about the equity. I think that's what I think we're really talking about. It's not that we don't have compassion for people. It's not that we don't want that. Obviously, I'm glad that those churches are taking some or getting involved. But how many churches are there anymore, and how many people actually or help the churches and give them enough so they can support situations like this? It's challenging. It's a nightmare, to be honest. I mean, we've done just food drives for our local neighborhood here, and that's nuts. And it takes all kinds of volunteers and people to get involved. It's not that simple. not
Sorry.
the way that they're trying to paint it as, you know.
Yeah.
And so when you say, oh well, we want to help, yeah, we all want to help, but that's when we have to talk about, let's put this in order. You know, I can't even handle a bunch of you know, bunch of kids coming to school at the same. They have to put them in lines and get them orderly to just to get a school lunch, much less, you know, clothing and food, medicine. Oh my gosh. And to find out at the end that some of these kids have been brought over here as slaves. And
Yeah.
that's essentially what they are. And they're being used that way.
Yeah.
Uh, Human trafficking, man. That's the biggest thing problem we have right now in the world, I think. But you know, what
Okay.
do
You
I
know what? I'm going to talk about the war on drugs
talk about the war on drugs?
because that's what's causing this whole thing, right?
Mm,
Mexico is becomes this thoroughfare, the most, I don't want to say the best and brightest, but the most willing to get up and do something about their situation people in Mexico, who are having a hard time in Mexico, are coming here. Why? Because we are the because Mexico's run by 5 mother flipping drug cartels. Because our war on drugs has created a black market that sends them untold millions of dollars to keep in control and to keep power over their government.
mm-hmm.
And if we ended the war on drugs here, right, legalized production here, the drug cartels would lose all of their influence, right?
Right.
And at that point, the government might have some chance of. I mean, Mexico is filled with smart, strong. It's a resource of people, natural resources, of, you know, it could be a freaking paradise, but it's just so jacked up down there, and so much of the problem is because of the black market we've created with the war on drugs.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, there are some chemicals that people would take that have been terrible, but that's something when you now all of a sudden you have an opportunity to control it, and so at least uh, um, handle the way it gets dispersed and tax it if you want to tax it.
Created. This is a funny thing. You know, drugs are all legal in Amsterdam, right? And I went to go search for drug overdose deaths in Amsterdam. I found one, and it was an English couple that had come over to Amsterdam, bought the wrong thing, thinking it was heroin, shot up and killed themselves, right?
Mm.
But because it's legal there, it's regulated there. Therefore, when you want a dose of blank, you get an actual dose of blank. You don't get something cut up by 12 different, you know, drug dealers trying to squeeze every dime out of it. You don't get something with, you know, a poison. You don't get poison pills. You don't get any of this stuff. All the stuff that ends up killing people from overdoses in America is because of the black market infrastructure that creates these jacked up drugs. I mean, the drug. If you want to be an idiot and shoot horse, freaking, that's your job. I mean, that's your deal, right? Don't make me pay for it. Don't make me pay for your hospitalization or your funeral. Mm-hmm. But, you know, the war on drugs is just causing way more damage than it's benefiting, in my opinion.
I don't disagree. I actually shared those views. I didn't know I share those views, and I realize it's not. I don't. I'm always concerned that I oversimplify those type of points, but I think that in general you can look at that and say, yeah, that's a big part of that, and obviously it's contributing. It has a great. It's contributing greatly to that problem. If we can, to your point, if we can get those things repaired, people would actually use that stuff and survive.
Yeah.
And anyway, that's why those guys are I mean, they're talking about the war on bicycles.
They're saying all the deaths in Amsterdam are bicycle deaths.
Anyway, um, but yeah, the thing at the end of the day is about that personal responsibility stuff, and and they're not handling it well. Then we need to take it over and control it in the best way we can, so that doesn't continue. Now, obviously, that's actually kind of in conflict with some of a libertarian view on some stuff, but when it comes to uncontrolled substances, I'd rather we get that squared away than trying I mean, I don't have a problem with people owning land. I just have a problem with people messing up chemicals that can kill you. That's rough,
Yeah.
especially for the countries that they have no interest in the survival rate in America on things like that.
Right. And you
Most
know,
of the countries.
I was just I watched this show, Murder Mountain, Murder Mountain on Netflix, and because it was about this kid from Ocean Beach here, was actually a friend of my niece's, who went up to Humboldt and got murdered. But they
Murdered.
murdered. But they were telling about this whole issue about the pot growers and all this stuff, and how legalization was horrible for the black market farmers who had been growing weed in Humboldt for 50 years, right? And I'm like, oh, wah. It's like, it was bad for them because, corporations, pharmaceutical companies have gotten into producing marijuana for the market, and they're like, an ounce, a plant that used to make us, $5,000 is now only making us $500 because the prices drop so much. And that's what happens when you free up a market like that, is that you take away the incentive for the criminals, right?
Yeah.
You take, if it's $5,000 a plant, you can make a lot of money growing some weed in the black market. But if it's $500 a plant, it's almost not worth it. Well,
Right.
it's I don't know. There's a
That's
huge
not
difference. There's a huge difference.
Yeah. You're just 10 times less, but
Yeah, because it's not like you can grow a plant over a freaking weekend. It takes months and months to reach maturity. So, and a lot of work. It's not just sticking it in the ground. Not
Yeah,
that I
yeah.
have a lot of experience. Uh, a little bit of experience, just a little. But
Yeah.
it takes time, and it takes a lot of work, and it takes a lot of paying, a lot of attention, and yeah, it would be the same thing with all of the market. You just kill that black market, and let's make Mexico great again.
Someone in the chat mentioned possibly taking over Mexico. Why don't we do that?
Because they are a sovereign state, but I'm all for that too.
You think so?
See, my plan would be, here's how we solve the immigration crisis, at least vis-a-vis Mexico. End the war on drugs, take the special forces down to Mexico, and wipe out all of the drug cartels, and then instate, well, not instate, but enforce a constitution similar to our own, I suppose.
Doesn't Mexico have a constitution?
I think it's written on toilet paper.
Okay, yeah, okay. Just making sure. Just in case we wondered if they did or not. Yeah.
MMGA. Make Mexico great again. Propaganda says, I've got a novel idea. You enforce American law.
Well, if you took it over.
Well, I mean, we could just buy it,
Hikaru says make them the 51st state.
right? Just go to the president of Mexico and be like, hey, how much you want? We'll make you a territory, right? Under U.S. law. You
Yeah.
still have sovereignty, but we'll come down there and we'll help you, keep the drug cartels off your back, right?
Well, maybe you can end up with the cartels moving south, though. That's the only downside to that. They'll just migrate to a different part of the
Not if
continent.
if you're in the drug war. What are they going to do? Where's
Well,
the mafia today?
huh?
Where's the mafia today?
There is no mafia, Michael.
Because prohibition ended.
There is a mafia still.
Yeah, barely.
Well, I'm saying.
Well, they moved into the unions, but that's another
Yeah,
story.
yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. Their power was born out of prohibition, right?
That would be fascinating to see what would happen if we made them a territory like Puerto Rico and Guam or whatever. That's a gigantic piece of property to do that to. Oof. Do you think Mexicans would retaliate in that situation? Like if we were, well, I guess if it was all legal, I guess it would be no difference.
No, you know what I think would happen as soon as it became safe in Mexico and prosperous? I think all of those Mexicans here who are only here not because they want to be Americans, but because they want to make a good living for their families, would go home to make a good living for their families someplace that their ancestors came from, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, if you want to come here to be an American, that's awesome. That's the best. That's the ideal of America. But if you just want to come here because there's better jobs, I don't. You know, that's not the
Right.
same thing.
If we would start building hotels and properties down there, and all of a sudden that becomes the great. That's like what happened. That's kind of what's happened. Well, not quite exactly, but that's what's kind of happening in Cuba. They're opening up their market to that kind of stuff, and businesses are opening, but it's not the same thing because they still have a stranglehold in that community.
Yeah. No, but Mexico, bruh. You been to Rosarito, Ensenada, Rosarito? That whole the Gulf of Mexico. If it was just known to be a safe place, man, nobody would go to Hawaii anymore.
That's true.
Legit, man. It's like vacation central, you know? Everybody in Southern California, everybody in America would just they'd end up down there. They'd dump so many trillions of dollars in freaking vacation money down there. If it was just safe, it would probably dwarf the money they get from drugs.
Do you think they would invest any money in Bitcoin?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I'm reminded because somebody on a Jack Jock says Bitcoin just hit 15K. Is that
no,
true?
No, it did not.
Okay.
Lies.
Never know.
He's making me check because he's like, hey, look over there. Look over there.
You know how much work you could do? How much good you could do with Bitcoin?
Nah, it's still at 10.880. 10.887.
I'm rooting for you, Mike.
No, dude, honestly, I'm hoping it stays here until I get my Lone Star money.
Everybody said, WK said, Bitcoin, everybody take a drink. That's good. Matt said, take over the world.
Oh, man, we are over an hour. This has been a very fast, very fun hour, Elliot. Thank you for coming on, hanging out. I don't know what you have planned for the rest of the day. I'm going to end up doing one of those how to draw a comic like a pro streams shortly and do a layout.
That'd be awesome. I'm going to go eat with my family real quick, and then I might hop in.
All right, do y'all thing. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Love to you all. Hey, spend time with your family. Spend time in the Word of God. Spend time on your knees praising your Creator. Thank you all, and thank you, Elliot, for being here. Aloha and God bless.
Aloha. Peace.